Today we're going to talk about business activities starting with a need and a want. A need is a requirement or necessity for life, for example, having food, and a want is a desire, like maybe a BMW. You cannot survive without a need, but you can survive without a want, which is like a difference in them. Another thing is that, for example, having food and BMW, we need resources for both of them to be available for us, and when they are not available, that is called as scarcity. Maybe I should give it some more space. Scarcity. It's when demands are high for goods and services, but resources are limited. This is what creates scarcity. If, for example, a customer wants 100 BMWs, but there's less resource for it, so this creates scarcity. Why does scarcity happen? What's the reason behind it? So the reason is the factors of production. We're going to cover that. Factors of production. First is land. Second is labor. Don't mind my handwriting, please. Capital, and then enterprise. A land is all the natural resources included in producing goods. Like, for example, oil, fuel, these are all natural resources that production needs. Labor is people. Capital is the sum of money, and enterprise is the skills. Now, something important that we need to know is that land, labor, capital, and enterprise, they depend on each other and they cannot survive even if there is like one of them missing. For example, if you have land and oil and like each and every resources are available to you, and you have the money available to you, and you have the skills and the risk-taking abilities, but you don't have labor, you don't have people to work for you, then it's very impossible to produce products or goods or services. Same with land. If you don't have land, if you don't have natural resources, even if you have people working for you, amount of money and the skills, then there's nothing that you can produce because there's no raw materials. And it's same with capital and enterprise. If you don't have the skills, then none of these could matter. And if you don't have the money, then none of these could matter still. So it's important to know that these things all depend on each other. The next subtopic, or maybe a big topic, is called as opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is choosing or giving up on one next big alternative by choosing another one. For example, if Spain and UK is both your favorite countries and you want to visit them, you have to choose like between one of them. If you choose Spain, then you are giving up on UK. But if you choose UK, you're giving up on Spain. And both are best options for you. So opportunity cost is something like similarly it's the same thing. It's the next best alternative given up by choosing another item. The next concept is specialization. Specialization is, let me just write it. Specialization is when businesses and people focus on what they are best at. It's very common nowadays because of the specialized machinery. Oh my god, what is this? The specialized machinery, which is widely available for businesses. So they focus on specialization. The next thing is that increased competition in market, which also reduces costs. For example, if there's like maybe multiple companies producing one type of soap, one is like the value of one is like much higher the price of it, but the other one's cost is low. So customers are obviously choosing the low one with the same quality. But if the cost was high, they won't choose it and they would go for like another option because that's has low cost. So that's why specialization increases competition, which means they have to keep their costs low. And also most people believe that specialization is like the real reason behind living higher standards, or that higher living standards results from being specialized. I don't think it's very important to write, but still, maybe you could write high level of living. The advantage and disadvantage of specialization is that workers are like trained by doing the same thing, and which increases efficiency. Let me just write it. While on the other hand, if they are trained doing the same thing over and over and over, they would get bored, and which also decreases efficiency. It's like coming back to another advantage is that less time is wasted moving from one bench to another bench, since there's only like limited products that are being produced. So less time is wasted moving from like workers moving from one bench to another bench. And the disadvantage is that if one worker is absent and no one else can do the job, then production might stop. I don't think it could occur unless that employee or worker is like a high level, like a manager or maybe the CEO. But if it's for the employees that are working in the production, then there are other people who could be like trained, unless it's like a small business. The next thing is called a division of labor. It's quite like connected with how specialization is. Division of labor is when the production process is built up into various tasks and each worker performs one of these tasks. It's like a form of specialization. For example, if Ali is trained to test products and Ahmed is trained to make the products, maybe. It's a broad term, but still. Now, this is called a division of labor. He's like trained to do test on the product if it's like good quality and bad quality, and he's responsible for making the product, which is division of labor, and that the task is split between them. The last subtopic we have to cover in this chapter is added value. Added value is the difference between raw materials, and selling price. Raw materials and selling price. For example, if a pen is made by using like $1 as raw materials and it's sold $3 on the market, then the added value is $2. This added value tells the business if they are making profit or not, and making profit means the business can pay other costs such as like labor costs, management expenses, and other costs like advertising and electricity. It's very important for a business to know if they're like if the profit or the product that they're making can support their business. If it cannot make profit or can support the business, then they might stop the production or use any other methods to like increase profit. As I said, they can use other methods. Those methods are increasing, maybe just like this, increasing selling price, selling price, and decreasing raw materials. If the selling price of the pen was $3, now they could increase it to $5. And if the cost was 0.5, if the cost was $1, they could now decrease it to $0.5. This could affect the quality of the product, but it does increase the added value. So yeah. And the other way was to decrease the material cost and keep the selling price the same. The material cost or raw material cost. And keep the selling price same. So if the raw material cost was $1, it's reduced to 0.5, and the selling price was $3. So there's still profit and there's still value added to the business. So this is the end of business activity chapter. There is a link in the description to access worksheet, marking scheme, and notes of this chapter. Hope you enjoyed this video.